on the edge. Oh,
John. Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to another fantastic virtual tasting with us here at Becker Vineyards. I'm Rebecca Nelson, Wine Club Director here. Tonight, we have another fantastic library release wine. So this is another one of those wines that Dr. Becker was gracious enough to let us pull from the cellar and share with you all once again. This is the 2016 Culinaria. So hopefully you've got that swirling in your glass, your favorite glass of choice for this evening. And tonight with us, we have Jon Leahy, our winemaker. We also, of course, have Dr. Richard Becker, and I believe Dr. Joseph Becker is going to be joining us in a little bit as well. So I'm going to kick it over to the gentleman to get you started, and I'm going to hang out for this tasting tonight as well. So enjoy, everybody. Cheers.
cheers, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us again. Might I add, you look very, very bright and happy. So, Doc.
Friday with some wine.
Oh, exactly. So before I get back to my favorite joke about the unicorns, would you like to kick us off with a few words, sir?
Well, I try to have a few just reminders of why we're here at the beginning of these. And in the 6th month of this pandemic, the curve is not flattening. It's not coming back. So many things about this illness are really frightening, and unemployment's up. But I think there's an emerging national consensus. I think people are understanding that if everyone wears a mask in all public places, that we'll have maybe 70,000 fewer deaths by December. That's something to think about. And I want to say it's been a wonderful experience for me to sit down with my staff that I admire, all of who have been various discussants, and learn about wine from them and what they think. It's been a nice experience. We're going to continue.
Did you get a pink slip in the mail, Rebecca? Because now I don't want to go out to my mailbox.
It's a thought.
Thank you for the compliment. So, well, first of all, I think we should probably get everybody started with a little Friday cheer. So pick up those glasses, folks. Give it a swirl, a sniff, and a taste. So I decanted this, Doc. I decanted this wine about an hour and 20 minutes ago.
I did too. Yeah.
Oh. So Rebecca, what are you getting on the nose?
So I'm getting a little bit of violet on the nose. Along with, of course, there's some red fruit there, but the violet is the thing that is different for me on this particular vintage of Culinaria that I really am noticing tonight. How about y'all?
Yeah, no, that's great. I thought you were going to continue.
I don't want to take all of them. I want to leave you guys some.
You want to leave us a few of the fruits and flowers? Thank you.
Yeah.
Only 180,000 of them. So, Doc, what are your impressions?
I get some cherry notes and some nice spice and some vanilla and kind of a very rich, complex wine that you've done a wonderful job, John, at finding ways to put these together, and it's fun to taste these.
Well, let's elucidate upon your comment on what makes a complex wine.
That's that question. The ability to age and evolve expresses complex flavors and aromatics, and then maybe a little more dreamily, it conveys the character of the place. It conveys the culture of the people, the kind of food they like to eat, what they would pair with the wine, and it evokes contemplation. And that's a heavy burden. And if Eric Asimov is listening, he knows I read his column this week. But I hope he is. Hi, Barry.
I like his columns too. Actually, I just re-upped our subscription to the Times. So I actually, I want to go back to and comment on Rebecca's point on the violet. I do get that.
Agree with you. Yeah, I do too.
I get this. I do not know how to actually describe this that would make sense to most people. I get what I call a cellar dust in the wine. It's a diluted earth, but it almost smells like dustiness, but with fruit in it. And that, to me, when I smell that in a wine, straight across the board, regardless of varietal, I know that that wine has a higher potential of enjoyment for me because that's part of the characteristic of a well-cellared wine. So, wow. Yeah, that is. Okay, I'm going to take a sip and see what we've got going on in the fruit. I hope everybody does the same.
You know, Eric Hasselhoff made another point I want to make, and that is, I want to repeat, he says that complexity could be wasted at times. If you're tired, if you're distracted, if life's getting on your nerves, maybe you'd like to have one simple note. You know, this is a very complex wine. When I taste this wine, I have to think about it. It doesn't just, you know, it doesn't say, this is this or that or that. And so maybe it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's good.
Yeah, that is very good. I don't remember off the top of my head without doing a Google search. What was, do either of you remember the theme for the 2016 Culinaria? We just got a question online about that. Because I cannot remember what the theme was. All I remember in 2016 was this really good taco truck there at the festival. Or actually, it was that they had a truck, but they were in that general tasting there at the hotel. But the grand tasting, there were so many good wines in 2016 represented. So many good Texas wines there. It was really nice.
And part of it was tastings, comparing Texas wines with wines made using the similar grapes in other parts of the world.
And I think, if I remember correctly, I thought 2016 was when we did the Tempranillos, or was the was one the
exactly.
Yeah. So that was really nice. So Rebecca, what are you getting on the palate?
So the palate for this one is very interesting to me because I get sort of this muted earthiness at first, but on the end, on the finish, is when I'm really getting hit with the red fruit, which is kind of counterintuitive of what I traditionally, you know, when I taste it, I look for the fruit up front and not necessarily on the finish. And for this one, the red fruit really hits me at the finish and at the end of the palate. But I definitely am getting those nice muted earth tones at the front as well.
I'm just looking for questions to see if anybody's going to ask. So I'm going to remind our audience as that grows, please ask your questions. We'd be happy to take them. But in lieu of that, Doc, we have a really interesting blend up, and I have to grab the bottle to get the blend out here because the Culinaria every year, the blend changes. And I really wait. Oh, there you're sneaking in now there, Joe. Just slide right in. Cheers, grab a glass and belly up to the bar. So we've got 40% Barbera, 24% Dolcetto, 14% Mourvèdre, 14% Tempranillo, and 8% Petit Syrah. The actual makeup of which vineyards this came from, I mean, the Mourvèdre came from a couple of different sources, and I've got to pull that up. Rachel was very kind to send me that breakdown right before we went live because she knows that I wasn't very organized today, and she's been doing all of these breakdowns for us each week. So I thank you, Rachel, for keeping us on track. But I know the Dolcetto for sure because it's the only vineyard we get Dolcetto from is Jets. In 2016, if I remember, the Dolcetto was not as ripe as the 2015 that we made our first Dolcetto from. So we decided to skip the year on a single Dolcetto, but it turns out that after another 8 to 9 months aging, so it was almost 2 years in barrel, that Dolcetto really started showing some really nice characteristics. And I think that's what we're picking up those deep red notes on here in the wine. Yeah. So Joe, tough day saving people?
Well, it's TGIF, it's always wonderful to get to do this and share a glass of wine with everybody, and certainly to think about everybody that's still out there on the front lines.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
But John, when I was an intern in Boston on Friday afternoon, starting at 6 o'clock in the house officer quarters, something called liver rounds began, and and so all the interns and some of the nurses and a lot of the faculty would all come and have.
You know what? You guys weren't living down in Southie, were you?
Boston City Hospital.
Yeah. Well, and just remember, stay away from the combat zone.
I walk through it every day.
Okay, so the Talent Vineyards supplied a couple of different wines for us here. The Barbera and part of the Mourvèdre came from Drew, which makes perfect sense. That Mourvèdre that he grows is extraordinarily rich. I really like and then the Ready, of course, supplied a little bit of the Tempranillo. The Tempranillo came from a couple of different vineyards. So you can see that this was really a conglomerate of almost every one of our growers. I think only 3 of them aren't represented in this blend. And we're one of them.
So John, when you were thinking about this wine, every one of these grapes has a really sort of brilliant fruit note, especially when it's ripe. I mean, there's nothing in here to smooth it out like a lot of Merlot or a lot of Cabernet or something that might, this has a lot of sharp points, and it's fun to see that it's come together the way it has.
Yeah.
Well, Culinaria, the challenge for me when I first got there, you guys told me, well, Culinaria had always been like a Cab Franc Merlot kind of deal.
Right.
I believe when you first started, if I'm remembering correctly. And, and the one that I had, and the first one that I had was a broader blend. So I took that and that's when I just simply asked, is there any specific wine, genre that we're trying to target? And the answer was something that goes with food from San Antonio. So having eaten at every single restaurant at least 5 times in San Antonio in my short life, I knew nothing about. I actually drug poor Jody down to San Antonio several times. I'm like, okay, we got to go find this. We got to go find that. We found this brilliant little taqueria that had been there in the same family since like 1925. And that was like inspiring. The El Pastor was wonderful. I was like, oh yes, this is food. So I wanted to make wine that people just sit down. It is, yes, I agree, it can be complex, but I didn't want the wine to overpower what you were doing, but I wanted the wine to be there with you. I don't know how.
What I
hope that
what I also think
sound
is
too esoteric. What?
John, what I also think is really cool about this wine is that you have a lot of wonderful grape varietals. It's a really cool representation of all of the interesting grape varietals that we could produce in Texas.
That's right.
And I think the food and wine scene in San Antonio has developed so much, with some wonderful chefs, and I think it's such a unique combination that we're able to do this in this part of the world.
Is it bad of me if I scream out, Johnny Hernandez, I love you?
He's wonderful. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Actually, we had a wonderful dinner at it's basically restaurant week for the entire month in San Antonio. So we had a 3-course meal at Bliss last night for $45. It included octopus and branzino, and so that's going on right now too. They're doing curbside and takeout.
There is speaking of which, and of course I'm lamenting because of COVID, and we've gone out a lot. Since March we haven't been out at all, really out eating, and that's one of my favorite pastimes. I consider it an Olympic sport if you're at the right restaurant. Practicing for my gold medal. But one of the places Joe and I did on a whim, and this was back in February. I was coming back from Twigga, and we had I believe it was Joe was in the San Antonio rodeo, the tasting for the wines.
Yes.
Yeah. So I ended up staying the night in San Antonio for 2 nights. We stayed at this brilliant little hotel down there, the Hotel Havana. Very old hotel, but their restaurant, their Sunday morning is absolutely fantastic. And I would not say this lightly. I would take a glass of this wine to their Sunday morning brunch.
Yeah, sure.
But the food in San Antonio, you're right, Joe. There's so much good food down there now. It's wonderful. And I really hope they keep garnering that reputation as a food city.
So John, in print, you said that
We got Rebecca back in
eating
the conversation.
eating is a Olympic sport. What do you pair with hot dogs when you're preparing for the Nathan's Famous hot dog contest?
Well, let me tell you something, buddy. You can't have hot dogs without a little bit of secret sauce from up in Maine. There's a lady up there that does a hot dog relish. And that, by the way, there's everybody has got a regional hot dog they love. One of my favorites, and Jody does not like hot dogs at all. She does not consider them food or anywhere near food enough. So, and she asked me, how can you eat this way and then you still like hot dogs? And I'm like, because anybody who's ever had a Chicago dog,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well,
a famous study published once that appeared to be purported to be real science, that hot dogs actually shorten your life expectancy, and you can shorten your life expectancy by X number of minutes based on how many hot dogs you've eaten. And so it's just something to think about, John. But
You're about
the more hot dogs I eat, I add minutes to my life. Did I hear that correct?
sort of, you're close.
Well, hot dogs are few and far between in my life currently. But, well, Rebecca, you've had a couple of tastes of this. Jump right in. We do not mean to ignore you, and I'm hogging the conversation. So
it's fun for me to sit back and watch. This is entertaining.
yeah, but I don't want bad texts from your mom.
Oh. You keep making wine like this, she won't send you that text, John.
Exactly.
The only text she's sending is, why can't I get more of the Culinaria? Where is it?
Right. Well, it's in our glass right now, so cheers.
Here's Mom. It's always been one of her favorites. And it's one of those, this one, especially Culinaria, every year is one that my wine club members really just are chomping at the bit for this wine to be released every single year. And we traditionally send it out in the May shipment usually. But it's one that, starting in February, I start getting the phone calls and the emails. When's the next Culinaria coming? When's the next Culinaria coming? And I think that that's something that speaks very highly of the dynamics of this wine. Even though it changes year to year, it's something that everybody really looks forward to because, like you said, the whole kind of vision behind it is, let's make something that is a really great food pairing wine. And you can't go wrong if that's kind of your goal with a wine. And the blends that you come up with on this are always just absolutely fantastic. And they're not blends that you're going to find anywhere else. And so you get so many different notes, not only in the nose, but also on the palate. And then when you pair it with different foods, that's what's so dramatic with this wine, is that every food you pair it with is going to pull something different from this wine because it has so many different varietals and so many different notes. And so pairing this and trying this with different things, I think, is one of the most fun aspects of this wine.
Well, it is a bit of a chameleon, and to Joe's point, and I wanted to mention too, Joe, because we were talking about restaurants. We actually tried this wine at a dinner I did. When it first came out, it was at a little restaurant south side of San Antonio, and I'm going to butcher this name, and I apologize. I think it was Viva La Vegetarian. It was an all vegetarian restaurant that we did a wine dinner at. So we had multiple courses there, and that was unbelievable. But
wasn't that kind of in the Pearl District? Was that where that was?
No, it wasn't. It was actually in a part of town. It was like the businesses across the street were kind of shut down. It was kind of going under revitalization. It was right off the interstate, and these guys were brilliant. The chef there took all of his grandma's recipes, his abuela's recipes, and converted them into a more vegetarian centric. So that was absolutely a wonderful experience on there.
I think one of the great experiences I had with Culinaria was I think Brett and Chris were there. We had our wines paired with Miguel Torres at what used to be Francesca's at Sunset over in the La Cantera Resort, and that was quite an honor to get up there and to be able to talk about our wines with him. And the chef was amazing there.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Joe, you're making me very, very hungry now. And so I'm going to jump right in. We've been talking about food because it is Food Friday, but let's jump in with Rebecca. You've had time and you know this question's coming. So Rebecca, give us your shot. What would you pair it with?
So this one, there's so many different things I want to try it with, actually, that we've been talking now. I really want something smoked with this wine. I'm getting sort of this note that I really think a smoked, maybe a smoked tenderloin, or just something that's got that smokiness to it. Or, you know, my old standby smoked duck would be really good as well.
You and Duck. I'm working on a 3-way duck po' boy sandwich for you.
Oh, I can't wait. No, but for me, this really, to me, I really think it would lend itself to something that's very smoky. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point.
Okay. Joe, what do you think, sir?
This wine has really evolved in the glass for me, and it's I feel like it's richer and, you know, kind of wonderful. The wonderful darker fruit notes are starting to come out, and so I have to say I think my food choice was changing. Maybe a braised short rib, or maybe even actually the way that Thierry does ossobuco here at the grill, I think would be good with this.
Now, what do you think about instead of the traditional ossobuco, using lamb for the ossobuco?
Would be good.
Yeah. Okay. Doc, what do you think, sir?
Michael Lockhart's Coco Van. Is what I
Oh,
like that.
yeah. You know, he's we got to keep it on the down low. We got to convince him that he still has a long way to go and he needs to keep experimenting.
He's doing a hell of a job. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
That's funny, John. That's what we say when you're not around.
Yeah, well, keep playing grapes. I'll keep stomping them. Oh, so the Coco Vin, that sounds really, really wonderful. I'm actually having a hard time.
My sister's pot roast that we had.
Oh yeah, that
at
was
the tree.
yeah.
That would be fabulous with this.
Okay,
Carolyn
I know.
pot roast. Ooh.
Now I know Carolyn's listening, and I'm just thinking, is there any way we can convince her to make one and bring it to the winery?
That's what I'm thinking.
With their homemade bread.
Well, and when she was on, what was it? She had the cherry. What was it?
Oh,
She was talking
yeah,
about?
the cherry turnovers, tarts, or whatever.
Yeah.
Turnovers or something. We're still waiting on those, Carolyn.
The one that Robert ate raw. Okay. Well, I think I don't know what I'm going to pair with this. I'm honestly stumped because everything you guys have said, it just sounds absolutely fantastic. But I am actually going to go back and say a pulled pork sandwich with the right coleslaw with the right amount of vinegar dressing. That would be good with this.
Yeah.
The fattiness of the pork and that coolness of the coleslaw on that sandwich, I think would be absolutely fantastic.
John, this is Zen-like for me also.
Yes.
What are the California pairings with Zen? Are they salmon?
Well,
is it?
No. It's actually there's a really good recipe for California pairings with Zinfandel. It's 2 parts pretension, 1 part ego, and 3 parts hippie. It works out very, very well. So actually, one of the things that we love to pair with Zinfandel is crab. And crab goes beautifully. Now, crab cioppino goes beautifully with Zinfandel. And the Italian immigrants that settled Northern California, and then, from San Francisco north, that started the wine industry up there. There are a lot of adaptive recipes, but there is one that has kind of mutated in. The original recipe is called agrodolce, which is sour sweet sauce that they can pair with anything, but they do that with a cioppino base. So it's a tomato-based crab and stew basically, but it's got a little bit of hint of sour and sweet in there. And that goes beautifully with Zinfandel or Brambly wines like this. Yeah, it would do wonderful.
There aren't many red wines that can stand up to a tomato sauce, and this one might. Like you're saying, yeah.
I really do think it would. But remember, as Chef Michael says, when you're using the tomato paste, bloom the tomato paste. I call it browning. He said bloom the tomato paste. Never use raw tomato paste. So, but yeah, I think crab would be an excellent choice with this. So, we're not getting too many questions here, but they did ask for a harvest update. So while everybody's here, we got in a couple of lots today. We got in some brilliant Chardonnay from Drew Talent's vineyard. The Chardonnay came in near perfect numbers. It was just a hair over 25 bricks by the time we pressed it and put it in the tank. The fruit looked gorgeous, Doc. That's the cleanest fruit I've seen in a long time. It just came in brilliantly clear and clean. The flavor was there. And then we also got in Sauvignon Blanc from the Reddy Vineyard up in Brownfield. That Sauvignon Blanc looked great. The numbers on that were just about 24 or 23 and a half on there. Still had some good acid there. So I think we've got a little bit of good Sauvignon Blanc on the way from that. So there's your update to harvest. Everybody, next week we're starting to get wine grapes ripening up that are traditionally 3 to 5 weeks apart from each other, and they're all coming together in one week, which is going to be a very interesting compressed. If this trend continues, harvest is going to be a lot more compressed this year than in the years past. So that's about the trend. It says, what's the next wine or grape variety for Becker for the doctors? Okay, what's the next wine or grape variety you guys would like? That's a question for you. One that we're not.
We were trying to get. Apparently, Drew's going to play some Charbonneau for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be fun.
Ooh, that's going to be a whole lot of fun. Is it Italian? Is it French?
John, I want to ask you a quick question.
Yes.
Because I'm going to ask wine club questions because that's my
Sure.
niche. So the wine club block, I know we tested the sugars on that a few weeks ago. We thought it would be sometime toward the end of this month. Is that still what we're looking at for the Sangio and the Petite Syrah from the wine club block vineyard?
No, actually, no. I had them drop all the fruit on the ground. It just didn't look that good.
Stop it.
That was perfectly done.
Emails, John. That's not nice.
I know, but they don't have my
Glad to hear
email
it.
address. They've got yours.
I'm going to give out your cell number. I'm going to put it on the website.
This is where Stephen Colbert says, pour me a glass of water and tell me that again.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because this week we released that very first vintage of wine that we got from the Wine Club Vineyard, that 2018
Yep.
Primavera. So I know you're kind of curious about how it's looking this year as well.
So 4 days ago when we took the numbers, they were at 21 bricks. They were very close. One was 20.8 and the other one was 21.2. So the Sangio and the Petite Syrah in those two blocks there next to the Lavender House. They are a ways away, probably a week and a half, maybe. Depends on the weather, depends on the heat, and it also depends on bird pressure and Mother Nature pressure too. So there are a lot of factors that go in there. So far, it's developing beautifully, but Sangiovese is a heavy producer. I want to see more color in those skins before I even consider taking them. The Petite Syrah is developing nicely, small berries. It's got some good dark color going. So we'll get an update. We'll actually be taking sugars on that wine club block again, I believe, on Tuesday
Okay,
of this coming
we'll
week.
do an update
So,
then.
yeah,
Perfect.
and we'll give an update out for everybody there that has a vested interest on that. So somebody just asked if that was the Sauvignon Blanc that goes into the white wing. And I'm like, no, not generally. The Sauvignon Blanc that makes the white wing is our estate Sauvignon Blanc, which is fermenting beautifully. It's down to 10 bricks already. It's been fermenting for a week. It's got a beautiful floral characteristic, tastes very yummy. There's just not a whole lot of it. So unfortunately for this year. Okay.
And John, what percentage is an oak of the white wing?
So none currently, right?
None currently.
Yeah, on the 2020, we have not. I decided not to ferment any of it in the French oak. I wanted it all stainless steel fermented this year. And then at the end of fermentation, I'll split it between oak and stainless. And it may end up going 100% oak at the end of ferment. I have to do something with those really inexpensive French barrels that we have. I mean, we wouldn't want to waste them on Cabernet Sauvignon. So, no, I've got about 40 used white barrels in there that are 4 years plus old. So that's the vast majority. And then we'll put a little bit on new oak for the Sauvignon Blanc.
If you're going to talk about the barrels, you better talk about what we used for this wine, the 2016 Culinaria, John.
Okay, so somebody just asked, how big is the wine club vineyard, Rebecca?
So we have 3 different sections. It started out, I think Dr. Becker thought we were nuts. I don't think he thought anybody was going to be interested in doing this, and it really went really well.
I think he still thinks we're nuts.
But we started. It was the first section was about an acre, and then we had a second section, and that too was about an acre, maybe an acre and a quarter for the second section. And then we were like, well, people still want to add on, and we thought we'd do another section. And with the Sauvignon Blanc up front, it was time to replant a section of that. And so for the third section, it's actually up in the front vineyard, and it's Sauvignon Blanc that we have replanted from those original vines. So there's about 2.25 acres just next to the lavender house and the outside pavilion, and then about 1.25 acres up in the Sauvignon Blanc vineyard up front that you drive by when you come into the winery. Yeah.
Well, somebody asked if there is a grape varietal that stands out most in your mind in this wine, and though it was directed to me, and I will answer that. I want to get everybody's opinion. Joe, when you taste this wine, do you feel that there's one grape more than others? Is there, or a grape like?
We were talking on Wednesday about we were talking about grapes we use for blending, and I love, there's just a little bit of this is the estate Petite Syrah that's in this, correct?
Yes.
And I always feel like it adds such a nice boldness to the palate. It gives a lot of richness.
Doc, any particular variety that you think stands out?
Barbera and Dolcetto both. I can't separate them out, but I think they're the principal, and they're the majority of the component of the wine, but I taste them both.
Rebecca, you want to hazard?
I was going to say the Dolcetto, just because I feel like I'm getting that fruit that I typically get from that Dolcetto, and that's really coming out nicely in this.
The grape that stands out most in my mind is the red one. I actually, when I smell that on the nose, I get hit with that Mourvèdre. But when I taste it, I'm tasting Barbera right up front. That nice, that beautiful zing of that Barbera. But I really have to agree with your earlier statement, Doc. Honestly, it really does kind of remind me a bit of a Zinfandel. It's got that bramble. It's got a little bit of that pepper. That is, yeah. Somebody just asked, and before we wrap this up, Rebecca, I am a wine club member, but didn't know about Wine Club Vineyard. Explain.
Okay.
Here's your pitch.
Here's what we did. So we thought we were going to plant some more vines. And so what we did is we opened it up to our wine club members. And if you'd like to sponsor a section of vines, then we'll charge you for that. And what happens is we'll put your name on a little plaque that'll actually be in the vineyard. And you have, say 5 vines on this side of your plaque and 5 vines on this side of your plaque are kind of your babies. And then we try to do events throughout the year. It's rough for those of you that have done it. You can attest to this because there's no fruit for 3 years. And then even after 3 years, there's very little fruit. So there's not a whole lot to be done in those first few years. And you really have to wait and wait for that to develop. And then we've had a couple times where we've invited people to come out and help prune the vines if they want to learn how to do that and see how that's done. We've worked on some harvest, trying to get the harvest incorporated, but the harvest is really tough because it's as soon as those sugars are right, well, it's time to harvest. So that's something that's kind of been difficult. But then we just have a celebration, once we've harvested it. Let's come, have the members out again and taste it out of barrel and see how it's developing. And then I encourage everyone to hound Jon as much as they possibly can to be, what are you doing with that wine? Where is it? And so we do that a lot, and that's kind of fun. And then what's great is once we do make a wine with that, those members who have a sponsorship are the first ones that we offer the sale of that wine to. And then we open it up to everybody else. And this one is so great because actually on the label itself, it says Wine Club Block on there because all that Sangiovese came directly from that Wine Club Vineyard block. And it's been so much fun. And I don't know if there's any way that you could feel more like you're a part of Becker Vineyards than if you actually have your name, next to grapevines in our vineyard. It's been fantastic. And you get to see them develop and you get to see them grow and you get to see how that actually all works. We've also had some issues with Mother Nature not wanting us to have events, and so you get to see what it's really like to be in the agriculture industry and see how that affects you. So it's one thing I've learned from that wine club vineyard and trying to plan events around agriculture is that as long as I have open bottles of wine, everybody's usually okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so we've got a request, Doc, here, and I think it's a rather good one. It says, thinking towards next week's Joe Leahy grouping and remembering Chef Michael makes such brilliant charcuterie boards before the chef's lunch, is there any way we can get Chef Michael to do a small few-minute demonstration on how to build a nice little charcuterie board for the Joe Leahys?
And he does. Yes, he does. Yeah, that'd be
And
fun.
maybe we could get him on Monday, Monday or
Yeah.
Wednesday to build a charcuterie board.
Sure. Yeah,
You might have to give him more notice than just today for Monday, John.
Nah, he's good. He's got it wired. That kitchen's down pat. He just wants to pretend like it's hardship.
Okay.
Boy, I want to mention that my brother Robert from Chicago was going to be on with us. You know, he was. I think most people didn't know that was my brother's band that played. They thought that was just, you know, a band in Chicago, and so he's going to be on Monday. And
Oh, good. Robert's
Maybe-
gonna come on?
Or
Fantastic.
maybe to have Michael on Wednesday.
That would be wonderful. If he has time. I mean, we obviously will have to tell him he has to do
Sure.
it. I mean, ask him if he can do it. But yeah, I think that would be great. All
well,
right.
let me tell you. Let me just say a little bit what Michael and I are trying to, and John are trying to do together, and that is, we want our winery, this spot, to be a place where you could taste French wine, as I say, made in German hill country by an Irishman. And also you can taste wonderful French food. And they've been working every Saturday producing a different menu, basically going through Julia Child. And of course, Michael had many years of training in a French kitchen. So it is that's our goal. We want this to be a destination for French food and French wine, and as best we can make that happen.
And
That's our
don't
goal.
forget, Julia Child's birthday is coming up in a week and a half. So
I'm glad to know that.
But Michael has I think that Michael, you know, is a great chef, and I think he's become an incredible chef for cooking for a lot of our wines. You know, the pairings have been unbelievable. It brings out a lot of the greatness of our wine.
I think
And
we
played
should-
by you, John. Yes.
I think we could get him to make hot dogs.
I know a few guys that would help him out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so not to remind everybody, next week is our Jolie pairing. So Rebecca, what's the first Jolie we're starting with on Monday?
We're starting with the 2017, which has been our current release of Jolie. And then we have two brand new releases. We have not released the next two vintages yet. We just did it for these virtual tastings. And so we've got the 2017 on Monday, we have the 2018 on Wednesday, and the 2019 Jolie on Friday next week. So doing a vertical of rosés, I think is going to be a lot of fun. It's something we've never done before. And then on top of that, watch your emails, because this weekend I'll announce the following week, and that's going to be all of the Chardonnays. And so that's going to be a vertical of Chardonnays. We're going to have the 2016 Chardonnay and then the 2017 Chardonnay, both of those from the Canada Family Vineyard. And then on Friday, 2 weeks from now, we'll have the 2018 Chardonnay, which is all from Drew Talent's vineyard. And so not only is it a vertical of Chardonnays, but you also have 3 vineyard designated Chardonnays. So those are going to be amazing as well. The next couple of weeks, I think, are going to be really, really great. I'm excited.
You know, I hope everybody's enjoying this. I'm going to say a final word and then we're going to close out, but I hope everybody's enjoying these tastings because I know both Rachel and I have very much enjoyed making these wines, and especially myself. I can't begin to tell you as a winemaker how much fun it is to have so many different varietals and to really test your boundaries. And in not just in the challenges that any given year, but when it comes down to making a wine, you know, I'm not making a wine just for me or just for Doc or just for Brett's palate when we sit down to taste. We either like them or we don't, but we are also in trying to make a wine to select at a broad pitch of people. Yes, there are some wines that are very narrow in scope. There are a few of them that we do are fun wines, but this is an incredible opportunity